So my name is Grégoire, and I am the executive director of an NGO called CAP International, Coalition for the Abolition of Prostitution. So I want to explain what the abolition of prostitution means. I am an abolitionist of prostitution, but people have to understand what it means. Abolishing prostitution does not mean eradicating prostitution tomorrow morning. What it means is that we want prostitution to be recognized for what it is, and thus for a violence, a sexual violence, and a fundamental obstacle to equality between women and men. What we know is that women and men and children who are in prostitution suffer from the sexual violence of prostitution. Why? Because prostitution is a repetition of sexual acts without desire, but because of the financial constraint. So what I call the abolition of prostitution is not the eradication. It is first qualifying what prostitution is, recognizing that it is a violence, and then, of course, adopting a number of measures that are needed. What are those measures? What we advocate for is, first, the decriminalization of prostituted persons. If prostitution is a violence, the victims should not be punished. They should be supported. So decriminalizing the victims, but also offering them real alternatives, exit options. If I truly believe that prostitution is a violence, then I have to offer social support, social assistance, exit options. If I don't believe that it is a violence, if I believe that it is a sex work, I will not do anything for them because it's fine, that's their job. We are abolitionists, we want support measures for the violence and for the victims of the violence. And what we also want is to criminalize not the victims, but the offenders. And the offenders are the pimps, the procurers, the traffickers, and also the sex buyers. That's what the abolitionists of prostitution stand for. They want to criminalize the buyers and the pimps. Why do we want to criminalize the buyer? Because that's a new concept, historically speaking. We want to criminalize the buyers for two reasons. First, because we are convinced and we know that paying for sex is a violence. Men who pay for sex actually impose a sex act with their money. They exploit the vulnerability of prostituted persons. They exploit the precariousness of women to impose a sex act. And we are saying sexuality should be free. Free from violence, free from domination, and free from the economic domination. So that is what it means to be an abolitionist. It's saying today, this is a violence which is not acceptable anymore. We will not legitimize it anymore. We will not trivialize it anymore. We want one day in the future, a society without prostitution, and we want today to qualify that it is a violence and to take the right measures that we need. We also want to criminalize sex buyers because there is a specificity in trafficking in human beings. Trafficking in human beings has a specificity. It's not like rape, it's not like sexual harassment, it's not like feminicide. The specificity of trafficking is that this crime is driven by profit. Trafficking happens only because the traffickers earn money. And traffickers, pimps, organize sexual exploitation and trafficking because there is a demand, because men pay for sex. So that's also why we want to stop, to prohibit the purchase of sex, because that's the best way and the only way to effectively stop the demand and then stop the trafficking. People often ask us what will be the benefit for the society. And I can answer to the question, but I can also explain what would we lose. And there is nothing to lose. If you live in a society without prostitution, what do you lose? Do you lose sexuality? No. People can still have sex when they want, with whom they want, etc. The only thing that you lose is the possibility for pimps to make money of this sex. So if you abolish prostitution if you live in a society without prostitution, you don't lose anything, but you earn a lot. And what you earn is a society which is free from economic domination, from sexual exploitation, a society in which people are free to have sex, to interact, but not in a exploitative framework. That's what you earn. You earn a society with more equality, with more respect, with less violence. And also, very concretely, we have released a unique study in France on the economic and social cost of prostitution. And what we have shown is that some people earn money with prostitution, but a very limited number of people belonging to organized crime. So the profits of prostitution are privatized by the organized crimes, but the social consequences are for the society. So the prostitution costs a lot to the society. Who will pay for the social support, for the social reinsertion in society? Who is paying to provide assistance, psychological support, medical support, financial assistance to the victim? The society. And who gets the money? A very limited number of traffickers. And that's something we should not accept, even economically speaking. It's more rational today. Prostitution in France costs 1.6 billion euros to the society every year. Because the pimps don't pay taxes, because the pimps take the money abroad, because the social consequences and the cost of those social consequences are high. So we have two options. First option, we don't change anything. And then for years and years, we'll have to pay 1.6 billion euros because that's the cost of the social consequences. The other option is that we invest in the prevention, in the education, in the social program, in the social assistance, and we will spend less money, and we will also provide assistance to the victims. We have often heard people saying that prostitution was a necessary evil. So people saying this say, well, of course it's not perfect, but we need it. So why is prostitution needed? Those people say, for example, we need it because otherwise there will be more rapes. Others say we need it because men have irrepressible sexual needs. They have sexual needs. I don't believe in sexual needs. I believe in sexual education. I believe in education to equality. So the vast majority of sex buyers are not isolated men. The huge majority of sex buyers are men who are married, who have sexual partners, and we even had a study in France showing that sex buyers actually have more sexual activity even outside prostitution than men who don't pay for sex. So what does it mean? Prostitution is not here for people who are isolated. It's not a question of answering needs of miserable men who have no access to sexuality. No, it's not this. The reality is that prostitution is about power. Men want a power to access women's bodies, to control women's bodies when and how they want. And they want to be anonymous. They don't want to take into consideration women and their desire. You know, men saying, I go to prostitutes because my wife would not accept to do this and that, etc. What does it mean? It means that those men can't communicate. They don't know how to communicate. It means that their desire, their pleasure is more important than the pleasure, the desire of women. They don't want to take it into consideration. This is a very archaic understanding of sexuality. We stand for a sexuality where the actors have equal power, where there is a reciprocal attention to the desire, to the pleasure, etc. And prostitution is exactly the opposite. Prostitution is the right for men to get pleasure by sacrificing the right of those women, the prostituted persons, to have their own sexuality. because men who pay for sex destroy the sexuality of prostitute persons. They rape those women. So is it acceptable that a minority of men, because sex buyers are a minority of men, they are not the majority. Is it acceptable that a minority of men have the power to sacrifice a minority of women, prostitute persons, for their own power, their own pleasure, despite the extremely serious consequences that it has on prostitute persons? Prostitution is an extreme violence. If we want to get rid of this violence, we need a mobilization of the whole society. We need members of parliament to adopt more progressive legislations that will not criminalize the victims and that will criminalize the offenders, that will not offer impunity to the offenders. We need the public opinion, we need everyone in the society to change his and her mindset. We need to change our perception. If we keep saying that prostitution is a necessary evil, that prostitution is bad for myself, for my family, but is good for the others. If we keep saying that we need prostitution, we will not change the society. No one will change the society. We need a real change of paradigm. And this change of paradigm first requires a new and better understanding of what prostitution is. If people understand that paying for sex is an abuse of power, has extremely harmful consequences on women who will suffer the consequences of this sexual violence, if we recognize it, that's the first amazing step. Recognizing that it is a violence, stopping the legitimization, the trivialization of the prostitution is a huge step. Once you have done this, then each actor, each player has to be responsible. Members of parliament have to work on legislations, social workers have to provide assistance to the victims, NGOs have to provide assistance to the victims to raise awareness in the society. Judges have to break the impunity of the pimps, the traffickers, and the buyers. Police officers have to target their repression on the offenders and not on the victims. So it's a collective responsibility, but it first requires a new social consensus, a new social contract, which recognizes what prostitution is, a violence against women. So CAP International is a co-sponsor of this wonderful forum in Mexico. To us, it is a unique opportunity to open the discussion in Mexico, to move forward, to progress on the collective understanding that we have, that the Mexicans have, that everyone has in the world, progress in our understanding of what prostitution is. What prostitution is in each and every country, and what prostitution is globally. So the forum will bring amazing experts, survivors of prostitution and sexual exploitation, decision makers, law enforcement authorities. And that's what we believe can make a change. If we want to make a change, we need a collective understanding of the stakes, and then we need to define and explore avenues for collective strategies, joint strategies. So the aim of this forum will be to achieve all of this, improving the understanding of the issue, listening to the experience of the survivors, drawing lessons and exploring avenues for the future, reinforcing and empowering the communities. I met this morning with groups from Colombia, from Uruguay. I heard the speaker from Sweden. I spoke myself. I'm from France. We will listen to the failure of the German model, of the Dutch model, etc. All of this will allow new actors, and that's key, and including young people, to feel empowered and to join the fight to end sexual exploitation.